Okay, so this is a game called Kinglet. So the idea is you want to take all of the pawns from your opponent, and there's no such thing as check. So you can check your opponent, you can take their king, um, but the only point of the game is simply just to take all their pawns away. So and we're just playing this interesting line that Opper suggested, where White sacrifices his king in order to trap the opponent's queen. So bishop g5 here is to stop the queen getting out. e5 is so you've got queen takes d4 to escape. c3 defends. d6 is to control bishop takes h3, so knight h3 doesn't trap the queen. It defends. And in the end, black gives up the queen for two pieces. And remember, he's given up the two pieces and the king he got originally, and he's lost a pawn in the deal. So that's the setup. So now both sides are developing. Pawns are exchanged, and knight here. So with this move, he wants knight takes knight, queen takes knight, with a fork on these two pawns and a very active queen. So I couldn't allow that. I just back off. So I'm getting this. Let's just move this so it doesn't keep on moving. Okay, rook e1, activating the rook. So what I did one practice game before this, I realized I needed to connect rooks and stuff like this. So that's why I tried to get my king out, get my bishop out, and try and connect my pieces. Let's just play up to the live position. To try to connect my pieces, try to defend the bishop. Here I took this pawn, and here I blundered. After the queen attacks here, rook f8. So rook f8. The problem is this pawn is falling, and I didn't know how to defend it. So queen takes pawn is very interesting. I have to play something like rook d8. The rook and king are forked. But rook takes is also interesting. King d6, just trying to defend everything. Queen e4, bishop e5. So just coming up to the live position. He grabs. There's an interesting sack of the piece. If king takes, queen takes bishop, the queen is very active. So he's going for knight takes, queen takes pawn, and now white only needs to win one of these last two pawns with one of his pawns, and then sack the queen on the last pawn, and he's won. So rook g8, just trying to pick up some pawns, take a pawn here, b4, bishop c3. So we're up to this final position, bishop f5, and c5 is played. So this position was actually very interesting because, so if I just put this, there's a slight problem with the board keeps on moving. Yeah, so this last position is very interesting because if Opper plays, I was hoping for b5, and I was going to play a5 to try and hold onto that pawn and keep protected by the bishop. But Opper had a cunning plan which I hadn't envisaged, which was playing a5 and then b5. And after a5, there's an interesting sack. Rook takes c3, queen takes c3, then bishop takes pawn. And whatever the queen does, sack the bishop on the last pawn, and then try and use the king to eat up white's final pawn. So that was the situation. Okay, I'm going to have to try and keep on adjusting the board. Now, Opper has played the final move of the game, c5. c5. Okay, so this is now the live position. So, but okay, so that's one line. So king takes pawn, but if king takes pawn, queen takes knight would be my concern. But then king takes another pawn, and then king takes the last pawn. But I think the queen would mop up my last two pawns probably in that situation. So okay, so I need to come back to that line. But rook takes pawn. What's wrong with rook takes pawn? And then the other thing is, what about simply rook takes? Yeah, which pawn as well? Rook takes f3 is also a possibility. But that seems risky, because then pawn takes bishop, and he has two choices of how to proceed. Then there's also, there are too many possibilities here. There's also bishop takes pawn, pawn takes king, bishop takes d6. That's another possibility. Because if bishop takes pawn, queen takes, I can take now this pawn. So that's a really, I like that line a lot. But but the bishop is such a lovely piece, it would be a bit of a shame. But, so after bishop takes pawn, I think he will take my king in that situation. So if he takes my king, then I get to keep my bishop. Bishop takes. And I still get I still got quite a few threats. So I don't know, I like bishop takes pawn. I feel like bishop takes pawn is correct. And Opera in chat saying my knight on c7 is good. So he does take the king. So I have to take the bishop takes pawn. So now in this final position, if I go rook takes pawn, he does queen takes rook, because he doesn't have time to go queen takes. Oh, he does have time to go queen takes bishop. No, he doesn't. Yes, he does. The rook amazingly, the rook controls the two squares I would like to attack the final pawn. So rook takes pawn, queen takes bishop would even be possible. So yeah, so that's not happening. So what else should I do here? Yeah, so both the pawns are really important. Okay, so let's think. Rook here. He takes the bishop, takes the pawn. No. Let's just analyze going straight for the win. If I just take this pawn, does he take the bishop or the rook? If he takes the rook, yeah, he just takes the rook. That's simple. So go for this pawn. No. So maybe play it more sensible and slow. So just back up the bishop somewhere. Okay, so the thing is, if I just back up the bishop somewhere, white can never actually win this game. Okay, so I want to. I just need to defend this knight by a protected. How do I do this? Okay, I've got it. I've got it. I do this. So my construction is I want to put a bishop here, rook here, and a knight here. That's the idea. So he's not threatening anything. Okay, so basically what I was just trying to say is, if I just have my pieces like this, and the idea is to go here and then here. Okay, he actually has this in this position. And I can't take it. Okay, so I have to defend the bishop. So now the bishop's defending the rook's defending the knight, and now my knight is free. My knight is free, that's the key. My knight is free. So my plan is to go knight here. He takes the pawn. and then I take back, and then do this, and then I take first. So that's the plan. If I'd just taken, then I'm too slow, I think. And he has no attack on this. I'm very lucky he has no attack on this. Oh, he does. He does have an attack on this. Oh my goodness. Okay. I missed this move. Okay, so the idea is I got swindled. So the idea is if I move the knight, I lose. If I do this, he does this here, and I have no time. I can't block. I don't have a block. I don't have a block. And this, and then resign. Okay, well played, Opera. But just queen takes bishop would be fine. So what if I do? Takes, and knight here. Oh, this is it. So knight here. But again, I think so. Knight here, but so the idea is to swing to either here or here. But the queen here can probably stop both of those moves quite easily. Knight wants to come here or here. The squares which stop it are here, here, here. Here, if you could get there. This side of the board also. So you could come back. Yeah, you could come back here as well. That would also work. Here would work. Okay, so here's the line. Rook takes pawn. Queen takes. Knight here. Okay, and I'm going to take out these moves because they're confusing, these arrows. So the knight actually blocks the queen from coming back, but the queen can swing over like this. And I can't push the pawn because obviously queen takes knight. So then my knight can't move. Okay, so the knight actually protects the pawn. That's interesting. Is there any way of attacking this pawn while also hitting those two squares? It hits the pawn. Okay, I missed this square. No, you can't go here because the knight's covering this. Okay, so that's out of the question. Okay, that's very fortunate. You can't go to this square here. So it looks like he has to come back here, but then I have bishop here, supporting knight coming here. So if I go, for example, queen to here, if he goes queen to here, knight to here, pawn here, bishop here, game over. And there's nothing he can do. Okay, so I missed that in the game. But that's Kinglet, everyone. Thanks everyone for watching.